Welcome to the Tabletop Gaming Guild podcast, a podcast all about the experiences and memories that playing games with friends and families can create. On this episode, we're going to talk about a deep dive into Scythe, which we've all just played recently together. So everybody listen in and enjoy.
Yeah, so Scythe was published in 2016 by Stonemeyer Games. The designer was Jamie Stegmaier, and the artist was Jacob Brzezowski. Scythe is an engine building game set in an alternate history in the 1920s period. It is basically a game where you're going to be spending a large portion of your time with farming and the threat of war. You're going to be trying to gain different stars from doing different objectives in the game, and these stars are going to be worth points based on your popularity in the game, along with territories you control and resources, along with the random objective during the game too. So the game of Scythe is unique because it immediately ends. It was one of the unique things. It immediately ends when a player gets their 6th star, which not a lot of games do. Also, there's no rounds inside. The game is continuous, so there's no resetting of the board, there's no changing anything. And another unique thing I thought in Scythe is that no one actually owns their resources. You just control resources. So when you produce resources, they go into the land hexes, and if you control that land hex, you can use the resources. So those are a couple of the things I thought were unique about Scythe. Did any of you guys have anything that you thought was unique about Scythe?
I think the way the player boards work is fairly unique. You have your faction board, which tell you some specifics of how, like what you start with and a few special abilities, but then you have a randomized player board that gives you your possible actions and what actions those combo with, and those are each different. You don't necessarily get the same one with each faction every time. You randomize it.
Let's look into the player boards a little bit more. So you got your faction player board, but then you also have that bottom player board, which dictates the actions and how much it costs to build things and such. And they're all different. And one thing I wanted to mention in there is specifically banned boards combinations, of which we didn't. I don't know that. I'd have to watch the playthrough. I doubt anyone got them. They could have.
We did not. It's the Russian Industrialists is one of the combos, and the other one is the Crimean Patriots.
Each of the factions have like game-breaking powers, but they're pretty well balanced out. But one of the things the Russians can do is they can use the same action over and over again. That's their power. And the industrial board, if you do that, will allow you, I forget what it is. Is it to build all the mechs at one time?
I was playing the industrial board during our playthrough. And the action that nets you the most money, it's the bolster at the top, which is gain combat points or cards, and then it's upgrade on the bottom.
Oh, so you just got to upgrade everything really quick.
So you can upgrade, and each time you upgrade, you get 3 coins back.
Which is 3 points. Yeah, so there's those. And then with the expansion and stuff, there's a lot more factions to deal with the combinations on there. And it's really cool how the experience changes based on those combinations. So where one faction might be easy to upgrade, another faction will have a really hard time. Where one faction can recruit really easily, it's really hard for another faction. So I like the fact that you have to change your strategy based on those. What were you guys' thoughts on those combinations?
I mean, it is, in essence, a unique player power. The two things come together to create a unique player power. And I wouldn't call the game asymmetric because basically everyone has access to the same actions. They might be paired up different. Like I had bolster upgrade, but somebody else might have move gain upgrade as their paired actions, right?
I would say it was asymmetric just on faction powers alone.
I mean, that's just unique player powers. That's not, I mean, that is a bit of asymmetry, but it's not like full asymmetry.
Correct. They also add a little bit more as you go, because as you unlock mechs, they reveal other powers that are slightly different from faction to faction, but it's still, light asymmetry.
The bottom boards are also all different for what things cost. Mm-hmm. One board is super cheap to have mechs, the other board it's not. You can pay up to 4 resources on one board for a mech, where others are 3 to 2.
The other thing I really like about the player boards, the bottom boards, is that they're recessed. This is something that Terraforming Mars absolutely should have done. You got the dual layer board so that everything kind of slots in and fits nicely and doesn't slide all over the place.
Yeah, but that has to do a lot with Stonemaier Games and their high production quality on all their games. They do spend a lot of time and I don't think their margins are necessarily high because of the cost they put into making sure the production quality is high. Then say like Stronghold Games' margin. I don't know, but I'm pretty sure that's the case because if you look at Stonemaier Games, they're a lot of times not that expensive in comparison to the quality that you get, where you'll spend a lot more and you'll get less quality in a lot of other companies. Or they have really good supply chains. I'm not sure.
One of those things.
Yeah, they're not a huge company, so I guess I'm going for the former instead of the latter. I would doubt that they'd be able to have enough buying power to be able to get a good price on that stuff, but you never know. Some people are good salesmen.
So of the things that you mentioned, James, the thing that for me, I guess, was the oddest was the fact that that I didn't control the resource that I had created. That was the hardest, I think, for me to grasp, because any other game that I've ever played with resources, if I created the resource, then it was mine and I could spend it kind of however I wanted, whenever I wanted. But with the fact that I might be in a location, so then a resource came into existence, but then if I left that region and then I forgot to take it with me or whatever, then it could be lost in essence. Or if a battle would happen and someone would take over the region, then you lose the resource. And so wrapping my head around that idea was kind of a hard thing for me personally.
Yeah, and there was 2 times I was debating stealing resources in the game because I was not a lovable group, so can't get any lower than 0. So I was like, you know what, maybe I'll steal some resources. And with that tunnel teleporting thing, could have done it, but
I was a little surprised that you didn't utilize the tunnels more.
Yeah, I made several mistakes in the game. I did what I was supposed to do, which is build the mechs really quick, but with my faction, because my faction lets me. I played the Saxony Empire.
Yeah, because your mechs came out really hard and fast in the game. I was surprised. By the end of the game, I think I had only maybe made 1 or 2 of my mechs, period. And yours came out super quick. But that was because of the faction that you were playing, really.
Well, not quite. It was actually the board, the bottom board, the bottom production board. It was super cheap for me to buy mechs. And it just happened to be along with, I think it was the produce action, and then I could just build a mech. So I just produce, build it. And I had all 4 mechs out. And what that one was cool with was I had the board to build the mechs, but the next thing I needed to do was get into a lot of fights. Because in the game of Scythe, you really don't do much battling. But mine, I can put down unlimited stars for getting objectives. So I could have done the battle objective 6 times. And my initial goal was to just do 6 battles really, really quick. So get those mechs and go out and just fight people. But then I don't know what I did. I just decided not to fight people. Spent the rest of the game just moving stuff around. I don't know what happened. I was like, oh, maybe I won't fight people. I fought Nathan once. Dan attacked me and lost, but he almost won that.
But we fought twice, didn't we? Because we fought early and you won, and then at the end of the game I attacked you and kicked your butt.
I'm pretty sure I was involved in 2 combats as well and lost both of them.
Nathan had the unique advantage of maxing out his popularity and his combat strength. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, my popularity was.
He was able to.
It wasn't maxed out, but
he was able to recruit really fast, which I think is actually very powerful if you can recruit. For me, it was near impossible to recruit. Mine was under a horrible place, and it cost 4 grain, and I had no grain production. So.
Yeah, mine was paired with my getting workers out. So I was getting workers out, getting the resources, being able to recruit, and then the other thing I like about the resource gathering in this is, you're sending out the workers, gathering resources, and you don't have to feed your people.
That's a plus. Yeah, you don't have to feed your people.
James is being quiet because he likes Uwe.
Yeah, I mean it's more realistic. You have to feed your people. They're gonna eat things, right?
I want to roll back for just a minute back to the scoring of objective, because I think that sort of focuses the whole game. So like you said in your intro, James, the score it's a multiplier. Yep. So your popularity determines how many coins, which is equal to victory points in this game, each thing is worth. And the things that are worth points are stars that you've been able to deploy, territories that you control, and then you get some extra points for every 2 resources you control, which I think is actually a pretty good balance. You are deploying stars not only to trigger the end game, but also to get points. So you're sort of double dipping there. You are encouraged to control a lot of territory for the second scoring objective. And that's one of the ways that conflict can come into play, especially over the factory that's worth 3 hexes at the end of the game. And then somebody, if the end of the game is closing in and you're like, oh, I can't fight them on popularity or territory. I'm just not in the position. You can just sit there and like churn the production action over and over again to rack up large numbers of resources and hope you get there that way.
Yeah, the territories, although they're worth a little bit less coins than your stars, you can get a significantly larger amount of points through territory. But you're right, it can get into a lot of trouble trying to do those territories. Plus, you have to like spread out your workers because that's where the majority is coming out, and be really smart on where you put your monuments. But I had a friend that got 1 star during the game, and he got 180 points.
Oh my god.
That's a lot.
Wow.
That is mainly all from territories, and his 1 star was popularity.
Oh, yeah. So the multiplier was
That
high.
was
That
the
makes sense.
only star he got.
Yeah, we should also talk a bit more about like how we get stars. The stars are basically you max out a specific track, so you get all your people out, or get your power to the highest, or get popularity to the highest, or get all your structures built, that sort of thing. So you max out one thing, then you kind of figure, okay, you have to retool to kind of work on the next star.
Yeah, that's exactly the way the game arc works. You can, if you focus, you could get 1 star out very quickly, but then you have to start doing something else in order to get your next star out. And you may not be properly tooled for that next thing, whatever it is. But yeah, it's all 6 upgrades, all 4 mechs, all 4 structures, enlist all 4 of your recruits, have all 8 workers on the board, can get 1 off your completed objective card unless you're James's faction, and then you can claim 2 stars from that, right?
Yeah.
18 popularity, which is the max. And then 16 combat power, which is the max there. Strangely enough, you can get 2 points from combat, which I find very interesting in this particular game. Because, like James said, it's not that you fight a lot. The threat of combat is often more important than actual combat. But, like, there's definitely a reward for getting into combat and winning battles. There's those 2 objectives that are available, and possibly the opportunity to steal resources from somebody else, which could be a big leg up.
Yeah, but the other thing we didn't talk about is combat and the downfall of combat. I'll get into why I think that there's 2 slots for combat primarily, but inside, the way the combat works is only mechs and your leader can perform combat, and they have to run into an opponent's mechs or leaders. If your mech or leader runs into workers of an opponent, those workers just get sent back to their home base, which is literally off the board. And you lose a popularity for every worker you scared off. The same thing will happen if you're the aggressor in combat attacking another opponent with a mech or a leader and workers. When the combat's over, if the aggressor won the combat, the workers would also be driven off, and every single worker that's driven off, you lose a popularity for. In Scythe, you use your power track, which is going to be how much power you have on the board, up to 7 you can put on your dial. And you can use power cards, which I think they go 1 to 5 or 6?
It's 1 to 5.
1 to 5. And you can play as many power cards as you have units that are either a mech or a leader. You reveal them simultaneously. Simply the person with the highest number wins. Aggressors win ties. And that's combat. I think that overall, I love the combat personally in Scythe. What do you guys think about the combat?
Well, I find it really interesting that it's a resource that you spend primarily. You have a fixed number of combat cards in your hand. It will take you an action to get combat cards in your hand, 1 or 2 per action, depending upon whether or not you upgraded it. And then it's going to take you actions to get combat strength that you spend into the combat as well. So going into a combat actually represents a fairly large action investment, right? And if you use all those resources to win that combat, 9 times out of 10, you are hosed and will not be able to win a combat for the next few turns until you rebuild that.
Yeah, because that totally happened to me. Because I got attacked. I was ready to go. I was building up. I was going to get a couple more combat cards and put some more mechs in there so I could hold the middle. And it would be very difficult for anyone to take it. But Dan jumped in, decided to attack me right before I was able to shore up my defenses. And then Nathan pounced on it.
Yep. Got to get those weaklings that have been, injured.
Yeah, I was hurting during the game.
He was just that one little bit before me because I wanted to jump in there. like I had no combat at all.
Yeah.
And my next turn was going to be to go in back into the middle after James, but Nathan jumped in there and that wrapped up the game actually. So
yeah, if Nathan wouldn't have jumped it, if Dan wouldn't have attacked me, Dan would not have attacked, and Nathan probably wouldn't have attacked me immediately at that point. Maybe not.
Mhm.
But if I got one more turn, I was going to use my move action because I get to do 3 movements, spread out, and then move another mech in there and get a power card.
Yeah.
That would have made it at least more tempting not to attack me.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is, because there's no dice involved, it's pretty quick, but it's basically a bluffing game. You're looking at how much power the guy has and how many cards they have, trying to guess how many they're going to use, and figuring out from there what to use.
this was it was the only part of this game that I felt familiar with, having never played Scythe before. When I saw combat and I saw the wheel and the fact that you were spending resources and those resources were going to go away, all of a sudden I was like, oh, okay, I kind of know this from Dune, because it felt fairly similar in that. But that was like one of the few things about the game going into it that was like, I might actually understand this part of the game. But like you guys said, it's not a huge part of the game. It's there, and obviously it did happen some, but it's not the sole focus of it. So
I also find that it's interesting, like, design decision that they put combat in this game, but it's effectively like a resource management game. So this is a game where combat is possible, but there's a certain amount of de-incentivization for it. I mean, there are incentives for it for sure, because it's worth stars, it could be worth resources. But if somebody wants to play this game and be a Care Bear at it, they can, which is a benefit.
Yeah.
And they can crush being that too.
Yeah, and you're incentivized more to attack other aggressive players. And a defensive player can basically hide among their people and use their people as meat shields to de-incentivize people from attacking them. Not really the most noble tactic, but it works.
Yeah, but also if you get someone into that position, it's good for you, because don't attack them. Just have them group all their people together, because then they're not spreading out and they're not getting those territories.
Yeah, true.
So there's a lot of push and pull, but yeah, I like the game combat because it makes you weigh the combat. You're not just like, I'm going to fight people. You're going to be like, well, let me think about this for a second. Is it actually worth me fighting?
Who do I want to fight?
Okay.
What do I want to fight them over? How much am I willing to put towards this fight? How much do I think they are willing to put towards this fight? The bluffing mechanism that Nathan brought up earlier.
Yeah, and I think what is getting into the 2 combat objectives, I think that actually exists as an artificial way to allow the 6-star to come out faster. So where if you're going to end the game, there is less detriments to actually doing combat without workers present. So if you've completed one, it's a way that you can just nail that 6-star in really quick.
I mean, Nathan did end the game with a combat, so I can kind of see what you're talking about.
I played about 12 games of Scythe, and I think about 8 of them ended with the second thing of combat, just because I think it's just easy. So you might not have wanted to do your first combat. You might not have actually been the aggressor on that combat, which you win a star as the defender. So you may not have actually wanted to do combat, but you got that, and it's getting towards the end of the game. Just an potentially easy attack. You could just pick on the weakest player and slap your mech over there and attack.
Yeah, maybe we should probably talk about winning the game. It's one of the things that I find that's really interesting is a big part of how you win this game is being the one that's actually controlling when the game ends. So if you get rushed to get those stars and then stop and wait till you get your last star to make sure you have a lead, that's a really powerful position to be in.
Absolutely. Yeah. And like a lot of other engine building style games, the goal is to have the most points when the game happens to end, or end the game when you know you have the most points.
Yeah, and I've got into extremely long games of Scythe because of that, where you got the 5-star guy, but you got the guy that's just getting coins. All he has is a giant stack of coins. And you're like, well, I don't have that many points, so game's not ending.
And I was both of those people in this game.
Yeah, I was hurting. I don't know why I let my momentum drop, because I was just like, oh, maybe I'll play around for a bit. I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
I don't know. This is Peter's first time.
I was going to say, so for my first time playing, I feel like a lot of time whenever I get into a game that seems to have so much going on in it, I usually kind of latch onto one thing and stay laser focused on that. And for some reason, the one thing I really stayed focused on was my objective card. So I was like, I know that if I complete this objective card, I'll get a star. And so I stayed really focused on it. And for me, it probably, looking back on it now, I was like, I should not have stayed focused on that, because it involved a lot of movement that I needed to do to eventually take 3 tundra locations. They were too spread out, and by focusing so much on movement, I didn't focus enough producing resources and then using those resources to create my mechs or upgrade. I could have done some of those things, and it would have been, I think, more productive for me to do those. And if the objective happened, great. But I think for some reason that was what I latched on to, and it was to my detriment because it took a whole lot of my actions. I didn't really even finish that objective until very close to the end of the game, but I was so focused on trying to get that to happen. By the end of the game, I kept looking at the 3 of you on the board, and all 3 of you had so much more money than I did. And I knew that money at the end of this game is the points. And I was like, how are they getting so much cash back at the end? Because I just felt like I kept spending it. I don't think I ever got above $10, whatever you want to call it, 10 coins, till the very end of the game when we were turning everything into coins. So for my first time, that being the thing that I latched onto really didn't work out well for me. But there's a lot to it. And there was talk about this is a game that a lot of people don't feel like you're going to win your first time out. And as much as I'm sure it's possible, there's just a lot happening, and not knowing for sure what kind of game it's going to be. Again, knowing that there's 2 stars for combat, even though combat isn't really supposed to be the main thing that you're focusing on. Yeah, I think there's so much happening that unless you somehow sit down and really dive into the rules and watch some playthroughs ahead of time, I think it's going to be really hard to go into this game for your first time and walk out victorious. But it's a good game, and I can't wait to play it again. But I definitely felt like I was in the game and the whole time preparing for my next playthrough.
I have some thoughts too about the objective cards, so I will jump in here as the next most inexperienced player. This was only my second time at this game, right? So I had 2 objective cards, and like you, I kind of looked at them in the beginning of the game, and I tried to pick which one would be easier. Now, full disclosure, both of my objective cards were super difficult to pull off. And I'm like, Nathan, James, is this true for like all of them?
For most all of them, yeah. None of them are easy. Some of them are slightly easier on them based on your position on the board. But a lot of times, I'll see if Nathan agrees with it. A lot of times, what I normally tell people when I set it all out and stuff is like, if you just focus on doing stuff on your board and forget the objective, build things and do the stuff on your board, make sure that you're pulling down upgrades and doing that, like doing the bottom section of your board as much as possible, you'll do well. You might not win, but you'll get the idea of the game and you'll get more comfortable with it because that's the mechanical portion of the game. But yeah, almost all the objectives are super hard, and they're not built for you to be able to finish them in the first portion of the game. So I would say, like, if you really want to do the objective card, just forget about it for the first half of the game. Don't even think about it. Just get your position down, get some of those things built, get your stuff powered up, and then you'll have more opportunities toward the latter end of the game to do things you might want to do, like the combat or the objective card.
Yeah, and even though this was the second time I had played this game, I pretty much did the exact same thing that Pete did. I looked at my objective card, and when I was playing the game, I wasn't like laser focused on one section of my player board to upgrade something completely, like get all my mechs out really quick. I was sort of like doing them piecemeal, upgrading them all like simultaneously. And I was getting somewhere, but not nearly quick, right? My 2 objective cards one was win a combat and also have 8 combat cards in hand, I think. And the other one the other one involved me having no stored up combat strength. It was like called pacifist or something. I needed to have no stored up combat strength, but 8 cards in hand. That was it. And then the other one was like win a combat, and I forget what else it asked me to do. But they were both super hard.
Yeah, I only worried about I knew mine had to do with land, so I forgot about it till towards the end. And at the very end, I was like, well, I'm spreading out now. What the heck is my stupid objective? Looked at it, and I'm like, oh, I got to be around a lake. I guess I'll do that. It's like, because I could at that point. But yeah, if you worry about it,
Yeah, I would agree. You kind of, like, second half of the game, you kind of look at it and see, okay, is this even achievable if you happen to be in the kind of position to achieve this? then you go for it. I had one that was particularly bad, and some of them really kind of don't match up with the factions at all. One of the ones I had is I had to basically surround the factory, the center of the board, and at the same time have $2 or less. So late game, having less than $2, I'd be sacrificing a lot to get that objective. So yeah, a lot of times you are sacrificing a lot more than that objective's worth.
Yeah, again, I'd say like your objective, it's just 1 star. You can get stars a lot easier for the most part. So if it looks like it's crazy, just meh. Because you'll get better board presence, get better resource production, get better whatever by doing the other stuff. And every board has some combo on it to do something with building one of the things. They all have one that they're best for. So whatever the heck it is on that board is probably what you want to start off with.
Yeah, and I get that's pretty counterintuitive for most gamers because generally, okay, you get an objective, you gear your entire strategy for the game around that objective. This is not what you want to do for this game. You're almost doing the opposite. You get your strategy and hopefully your objective kind of lines up.
Yeah, again, I'm so used to games, Wingspan. You get your objective card, in Wingspan, I'm kind of hoping that I'll complete that objective and play a bird where I get 2 more objectives and I choose one and maybe I've completed that one as well. I mean, it's Ticket to Ride where, maybe by the end of the game I'll get more objective cards and I'll have completed those 2 and there's more points. This is, you might complete this one objective by the end of the game, but don't focus on it. Do the other things like you guys are saying. Do those other things. Whatever's the best thing on your board, keep doing that. And if you happen to get the objective, then that's great. That's just another little feather in your cap. But yeah, for me to have latched onto it, again, I think it's because of so many games that I play that when you do get that objective card, that's what you want to do, like Nathan was saying. I think that's why I probably latched onto it so hard. But again, it's all that learning experience. And so yeah, if you're like me and this is going to be your first time going into a game of Scythe, just don't worry about your objective card. Look at your game board, look at your player board, focus on that. And like James was saying, you want to get as quickly as possible so that you're not just doing the top action, but you're doing the bottom action as well. Because I was surprised at how long it took me to get to that point that I was able to take the top action and the bottom action also. But I think that's a really cool mechanic. I think it's really cool that you choose an action and you definitely can do the top thing, but you might also be able to do the bottom thing, and you want to be able to do both of those. That way you're really maximizing each turn, because when you're just going there and you're just moving and then you can only move 1 space, everything you feel like you're going at such a glacial speed. And here I was making 1 move a turn and I'm watching James get all 4 mechs on the board. It's pretty crazy to watch this, what seems like very stilted gameplay, where I felt like I was struggling to get anything done, and I'm watching you guys play and I feel like you guys are doing so much more than I was doing.
Yeah, this comes with playing it a bunch too. But one thing I was going to say is that one thing that's more important, I think far more important than your bonus card ever is the structural bonus tiles. The random one that gets put out at the beginning of the game. If you want to pay attention to anything, that's the guy you want to pay attention to, because not only does it give you bonus points at the end of the game, but it helps focus you on getting more territory, no matter what they are. So no matter what the rule is for them, if you're going to latch onto some sort of like bonus, that would be the one to latch onto, but still far more important to do the mechanical thing on the bottom of your board.
Do you remember what was our bonus
Ours
there?
was where you were have structures next to mines.
Right, that's right. You wanted to have your structure, and if we could, then get it set so it was adjacent to 2 mines, because that's about as good as you can get, is having it adjacent to 2,
Yeah.
right?
Yep, and if you tried to complete that, like get all of them, you would have a lot of territory. So you would net a lot of points just doing that. So that's why I think those are, if you're going to latch onto a bonus, I think those are better because they get you into the higher scoring thing, which is the regions control.
Yeah, in this game I like to use the typical Euro strategy of getting more people out, getting more workers out, and getting more resources as quickly as
but
possible.
if you don't have that way of getting, if you don't have people building constantly by you to use the recruit thing to get stuff, or you don't have the ability to get your military up or your popularity up, if you get all your workers out, you're going to be tanking your military and popularity every time.
That is very true.
It's still a balance. Like, I still think that the game's cool because it has so many different strategies you can use and still win.
Yeah, generally with the getting the people out strategy, there's a point where you want to stop for a while. Because after you get to a certain point, once you start losing popularity because you have too many people out, that you don't want that early game. You want that towards the end of the game, or maybe not at all. But
no, I think you're right. I think I think you want it towards the end, because like after you've done like half your upgrades and gotten all your mechs out, and after you've done all or even half of those things that are on the bottom of your player board, like those resources, like once you've spent all your grain to get all your recruit, grain is just victory points at that point for you.
Yeah.
There's a lot of mitigation with all those workers. Yeah.
So that's the point. Once those resources just become extra victory points, once you get, say, 2 out of the 4 complete, that might be the time to switch to get all your workers out and to get that star if you wanted to go that direction.
Yeah, there's an interesting dynamic. It's like, getting the workers out is linked to gathering resources, but once you get all your workers out, you never want to gather resources again because you're paying too much, because you have to pay that popularity, you want to pay the power, every time you do that. So you want to make sure you're not getting your last few workers out until you have pretty much all the resources you need, which is a little counterintuitive, but that's my strategy going in.
No, that makes a lot of sense to me.
There are ways that you can control that loss, though. So if you can not take a hit on it, and you may want to do it early. It all depends. Depends on what you got going.
I mean, you can counteract those losses from the cost that you pay into production with some of the other actions that are on the table. I mean, so what? You pay a combat strength. You can upgrade your combat strength action so you're getting 3 an action instead of 2, right?
You lose a little popularity.
You use the trade action to gain 2 popularity per action.
So there's a lot of things you can do. So overall, because I want to get into like going crazy on Scythe, I'll talk about that in a second.
Well, I want to talk about 2 other small features of the game, if you don't mind. I want to cover encounter cards and what you guys think of those, right? Because that is a piece of it for sure. There are these encounter tokens on the board that only your hero can uncover. When you do so, you get this cool little card that gives you 3 choices. Choice 1 is usually you get a little bit of stuff. Choice 2 is usually you get a little bit more stuff. And choice 3 is you get like some broken amount of stuff, but usually you have to pay popularity or something else to do it. It's the way they usually roll.
Well, it's good to be evil. I mean, what?
Yeah, like the third one, I think there's one you pay 3 popularity and you get a mech out, which is awesome, but 3 popularity is a lot of potential points.
And the other thing with encounter cards is that if you don't have the popularity or the resources or whatever it asks for, you can't do it.
I was going to say, because, like early on, James and I both went with one of those third options on one of those encounters, and so both of us for quite a bit of the game had very low popularity. And so if I had come up against another encounter, I wasn't going to have the option of taking that third choice. I was definitely going to have to take one of the other 2.
And I think in the game I got 4 encounters. I definitely race for those encounters. Like if I have any opportunity of getting another one, I always do, because they give you a bonus that basically can take away from having to do 1 to 2 actions additionally to get them normally or more. So that's why I love them. That's why I think that sometimes in some of the games we have combat over them just because of how valuable they are. So
yeah, it's an interesting pacing thing to the game too, because they're effectively like exploration tokens. There's the most in play towards the beginning of the game, and they can become scarcer as the game goes forward. So, like, you have access to more near the beginning, and I'm not sure what the appropriate choice is. Is the third choice, the one that gives you the biggest bonus, the best for the early game because you can make up for the popularity loss later? Or is it one of the other choices? I imagine the weaker choices are actually better later because you don't want to be losing popularity towards the end of the game.
I think it all depends on what your actual strategy was. So for me, I wanted to get all 4 mechs out immediately. So getting that one where I could pop out a mech was worth it. But if I wasn't trying to do that because my board didn't match up with making mechs really fast, I would not have picked that third option at all. I would have picked the first one or the second one, depending. Because the second one normally is if you have money, you can spend it for something or something like that. And the first one just like, I'm just going to give you something little, don't worry about it. And throwing away money isn't as bad as popularity. But like I said, I was trying to get all 4 mechs out to get out on the board and get them tramping around because of my board, so I did that one. But yeah, I think it's all subjective on whether you want to actually do that third one or not, and some of them are more painful than others.
I do also like how each option has basically just 3 words describing what it is that's happening, and that's enough to really kind of give you a sense that, okay, this is kind of something nice you're doing, this is something a little iffy, this is something really nasty you're doing.
I just like getting down the kids' trees, like, Dad, that's happening.
Yeah, we took down the tree house.
I think that was the thing that honestly, and this isn't really a mechanics thing. I loved the encounters for the fact that they sold the theme of the game. There's not much else that really drives home the setting that you're in. I mean, you get your mechs out and those are cool, but if you're not fighting a whole lot, then what else is there that really drives home the theme of the game? And for me, I think it's in the encounters. You get to read this little bit of story that all of a sudden makes you interact with the world and the theme that you're in. And so I enjoy the encounters for that fact, because again, I'm such a thematic board gamer. I want to be lost in the theme of the game, and so whenever those encounter cards came out, I wanted to read what they were. I wanted to see that little bit of just that snippet of story that you're going to get. So I enjoyed them for that fact.
Yeah, I liked them a lot. They actually have an encounter pack, which is like the fan-made encounters that gives like doubles the encounters. So I picked those up. Scythe is definitely, if you pick it up, it's a wonderful game. You look at it and you're like, wow, I should buy more stuff. And then it becomes a rabbit hole, and you buy more and more stuff for this game. And then you paint the miniatures, and then you put bases on them.
All right, before James waxes poetic.
We were talking about setting there. We need to talk about that, I think, theme and setting. I don't know what I'd call it. I mean, it's not really steampunk. Maybe you can call this industrial punk, but it's really kind of a unique art style. It's a nice looking. It's basically, you got these, heavy mechs that look very mechanical, and you got kind of rough looking people. One of them's riding a bison for some reason. It's all warlike looking people, but yeah, I really like the art and the theme that comes out of that.
Okay, so the specific genre that this fits is called diesel punk.
Okay.
Yep. So
Diesel
World War I punk.
This is the only thing with diesel punk that I've ever encountered.
A lot of your mech games that are like World War I mechs games or stuff, they'll fall under diesel punk. I'm trying to think of a couple. I know I've seen them, but yeah, this is probably the first one you ran into.
I was gonna say this is the first game. Honestly, this is the first game that I have played in a long time that involved mechs at all. Years ago, when I was younger, there was a series of computer games all about driving mechs and doing that. And I haven't really encountered a game involving mechs since then, personally. So I kind of thought, for me, it was a nice little throwback. But what are the games out there that are really good that are mech driven?
James knows what I'm thinking about.
Twilight Imperium 4th edition expansion has mechs in it.
No.
Oh, does it?
It is sold out.
Oh.
I was gonna get it, and it's sold out.
Of course it is.
Well,
Nathan
I
is
story of
thinking
James
of
Thinking
Mechs
Mechs versus Minions, but I wasn't gonna give him that one. I wasn't gonna give him it. But yeah,
That's a
Mechs
really
versus Minions is awesome. You have Tiny Epic Mechs.
Okay, I had another small game component that I wanted to discuss in addition to the encounter cards. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the factory cards. So there's this deck of special cards. There's a number of them equal to number of players plus one in the game. And the first hero to reach the factory sort of gets first pick of these cards. Pete got first pick on our game. I got second pick. I think James picked up a third, and Nathan never picked up one, but he didn't need it because he won.
Yeah,
I like to pick on the people picking them up.
I think that the factory cards are only valuable if you can get them early to mid game, and if you can be one of the first couple people to be there. Because I would have loved for Nathan to get him factory cards, because both factory cards were completely useless to him. They all were about building the enlist thing.
Oh, yeah,
and he had all four of them done, and they're both that. So I'm like, well, if he gets one of these, he won't be able to use them.
Yeah, and that's the thing. So you look through. When you're the first one there, you get to look through all the available cards and pick the one you like. So if you're the last one there, you're getting what's left.
I mean, I liked the card that I got. I obviously got to choose first because I got to the center of the board quickest, and I felt like I got to utilize it a fair bit. But again, I was so focused on that objective. I used it mostly because it helped me move more, and I needed to move to get to those tundra locations. So even though it was really good to have, I probably didn't utilize it as best as I could have.
I didn't use the one I got at all. But I always got third pick, and I was like, oh, wow.
I was second pick, and I looked at the 4 cards that were remaining, and I didn't like the costs on like 3 of them. One of them had a cost of popularity, and I'm like, I don't want to decrease my popularity because I know we're heading towards the second half of the game. One of them had a cost of military strength. I'm like, I don't want to do that because I'm trying to win a combat here in order to get my objective card completed.
Yeah, and those are just the luck of the draw of which ones you end up with, because you basically take the stack of, I think the base campaign comes with 16 of them, I think, and then you just take your player count, add one, and those are what you have available out of that stack. With the different expansions, you get a lot more, but still same issue.
Yep, there's one more important element about, and that's the river and how that restricts your initial movement. Because beginning of the game, you cannot cross this river. You have to stay within your territory, and you have to look at your potential ways that you can unlock, be able to cross this river. But once you've crossed this river, you're now into territories with other people, and you have to potentially worry about them attacking you or whether you want to attack them.
And that's where the game actually incentivizes at least building one mech, because the majority of these will be solved by building the mech that gives like the walking ability to go across to a different type of terrain across the river. So there's only two factions that don't care about that necessarily. Those were an expansion faction. Within our playthrough, they were there, and they don't have a river blocking them, but for the most part, in the base game especially, all the factions are blocked by a river, and it sort of holds you in until you build that first mech.
My Nordic faction that I was playing had a special ability where their workers could cross rivers without the assistance of a mech. And when that was actually super awkward for me in the middle of the game, because I wanted to build a mech on this hex that had workers on it, so the mech could carry the workers back across the river. And then I'm like, wait a second, my mech can't carry those workers across the river because the terrains are wrong.
Yeah, your faction's pretty cool because you can get those workers out there and start building the mechs on there, but then they never can get back. So yeah, I think, did yours have the lake walk where you can go in the lake?
I believe one of my special abilities that I unlocked was lake walk. I probably had it by the end of the game, but I don't think I really used it.
Yeah, it does incentivize getting these mechs unlocked, because one of the things that happens is once your mech unlocks something, your leader actually gets that ability too. And a lot of times you're not thinking about combat, you're just thinking about movement and freeing up being able to go across the board and getting that leader out to the other encounters, or getting the leader out to the middle, because only the leader can trigger the factory bonus. So, do you guys, a lot of people say that the beginning of the game is slow. Did you guys see that?
I mean, it definitely ramps up.
You didn't feel like this was really boring, I'm just doing a couple little things, and then the action started happening? I never felt that way, but I know I've heard people feel that way, where it was just really boring at the beginning.
I wasn't bored. I definitely felt like it was slow, though, again, because you are limited. Like, you want to do so much more, and you can't. You want to be able to move your characters, your workers farther, or, take a production action as well as something else, but you're so limited in doing those one things. Like I said, as quickly as you can, you want to be able to do the top action and bottom action. But for a good little portion of the beginning of the game, you're stuck just doing the top action, and that's all you can do. But for me, that wasn't boring. It was just challenging.
Yeah, there's definitely each board has its own efficiency challenge on it, and it really feels bad when you're like, I need to do this action because I really need to do it, but I'm not getting anything out of the bottom. So it sort of feels like a wasted action, even though it's probably not. But I got that feeling multiple times in the games I'm playing where I'm like, I need to move, but I can't do the bottom, or I need to do this, but I can't do the bottom. So there's a lot of balancing, because you actually don't want to wait to be able to do everything, because that's bad too.
Yeah, the game is a lot of taking actions to prepare for your next action, almost.
And I like that kind of game where I do like to plan 3-4 turns ahead. And, generally my plans in this game, do work out. There's not much to really stop me from actually doing what I want to do. Other than, unless my plan is like to do combat with somebody, then you might be able to stop that. You might be able to power up. But as far as like getting a mech out on turn 3, if I plan for that, I'll get it.
And I'll say another cool thing about that is that if you play with a bunch of people who have played a lot, the games go super fast for Scythe. Like, turns literally take seconds.
Just because people are thinking so far ahead about what they want to get done, that as soon as it's their turn, they take that turn real fast.
Yeah. My turns were a little slow because I was moving the camera around on each person, so to show their boards. So by the time it got back to me, I forgot what was on my board. But normally when I'm playing it, I already know what I'm doing way before it's my turn. So I just do it real quick and I'm done. So that's the other thing. Like, when in your initial first play of Scythe, it can actually take a lot longer than it should, just because people got to figure out the mechanics and stuff. But I do like that it gets really fast the more you play it.
but is the fact that you're trying to gain popularity, and the higher your popularity is, the higher your scores are worth on different things. Are there other games out there that you can think of that share a mechanic like that? Because I was as we were playing it, and since we played it, I was trying to think of another game, if there was any other game that I'd ever encountered that had that. I thought that was a really interesting way of determining the value of things. It fit the theme really well, which I thought was cool, because again, you're playing a kind of a political war themed game, and you want to be popular amongst your people. So I thought that was interesting, but I couldn't personally think of another game that had a mechanic similar.
Can't think of one off the top of my head. You boil it down to a tiered scoring system. So when you reach a certain tier, your scores become X. So I bet there's going to be a bunch out there, but I can't think of any right now.
So I'm thinking of games that have like majority scoring and or like almost like a stock based system. So I can think of like two off the top of my head that I'm vaguely familiar with. One is Mombasa, which unfortunately I've only played once. That's an Alexander Fisher game where you're manipulating companies in Africa, and like by putting trade houses from the companies from their home area onto the map, you're making their stock worth more. And your score at the end of the game is sort of how many shares you have multiplied by how many coins are revealed from their home board, which is based on how many houses that they've managed to put out. And then in the Ticket to Ride expansion, Pennsylvania/United Kingdom, on the Pennsylvania board, every time you complete a route, you take a card that represents a unit of stock in one of the railroad companies, and the person with the most stock in each railroad company scores extra points at the end of that game.
Yeah,
I think additional points for like second or third, depending upon how many players there are.
I've also played a couple games that do this. I haven't played the ones Dan talked about. The ones I've played mostly have gone a little wrong with it. This one did it really well. Scythe does it really well. But I played games like City Hall and Bremenhaven, where essentially it's a score multiplier, but then you end up with scores in the thousands, which makes it such a pain to calculate. Okay, you have to multiply like in City Hall, you have to multiply your popularity or your prestige, I can't remember which it is, times the number of seats in the house or something along that lines, and times this other thing, and you end up with a score of 1,576. No, you don't. That's just, at the end of the game, you don't want to do all that math.
Addition's one thing, multiplication's another.
Yeah. Complex math. No.
Okay, well, I was just wondering because it felt very unique to me anyways, and again, important because you do want to have a higher popularity so you can get that. But again, do you make getting higher popularity your focus to the detriment of other things? So again, there's a balancing act, because I noticed that nobody, I don't think, really focused heavily on getting their popularity all the way to the top. But I think Nathan and James ended up being at least in that middle tier of the popularity track.
Yeah, there's very little point other than the 1 star to get your popularity all the way up. If I did any more, I've only done 2 more popularity just to get on the bottom of the 3rd tier and just leave it, because I wouldn't really care to go much higher. I needed a little bit more time, so I wasn't going to get my 6 star. But I couldn't stop Nathan from getting his. But yeah, I know there's games out there that based on your performance in the game or factor of X, your gold or gems are worth more or whatnot. But Scythe definitely puts it to the forefront with that. That's another thing I really like about the game. I think the iconography on the game is amazing. I like the fact that on the board, it tells you what all the combat cards are up in the corner there. It has a board that just obviously tells you what the popularity versus the scoring for the coins and stuff is. You just see it the entire game. You don't have to look on a reference sheet or anything for it. It's just right there. Everything seems to be like laid out on the board just to be intuitive. So
yeah. I mean, it's a very well designed visually board. Like you said, it's nice that everything is just kind of right there. It doesn't feel like it takes up too much space. So yeah, I visually I liked the game. Mechanically, I enjoyed the game, and as usual, I lost.
Okay, again, I still feel that Scythe is a game you have to play multiple times before you're good at it, just because of the complexity of the stuff and the inherent idea that it's something else. So once you actually play it, you realize it's not. You might have thought it was. Like, the majority of people think it's a combat game.
Well, yeah, I mean, from the cover of the box, you see all those mechs and you're like, yes, like this is gonna, and it's not that game.
Yeah, you get your mechs, you're like, I'm gonna blow stuff up, and you're like, nah, I'm farming.
No.
I'm farming. Now, I'm going to build a structure.
Now, I did win my first game, but not everybody can be me.
No, it's true, Nathan. We can't all be you.
It was all a matter of, like the game was almost over, and then something clicked, and I realized, and completely changed my strategy. And it's like, okay, I need to actually start getting points now. It's just, the point scoring element just clicked at the very last moment before I was about to get my 6th star. And it's like, I would have lost if I got my 6th star at that point. But, I switched gears and managed to pull it off.
I will also go on record saying that I enjoyed this game. I enjoyed this play. I enjoyed the game. I enjoyed this game better than the first time I tried it. It's been a little while, and I'm not sure exactly how long. I definitely want to get back to this game. It's a darn shame that this game would be needs a good group behind it in order to be good, though, as I feel. I wouldn't want to play this at 2. I want to play this with 3, 4, maybe 5 once, just to see, but...
I do also want to say, we played this on DLC for Tabletop Simulator, and I thought that was a really robust DLC and really well implemented, and I really did like that version of it.
Now, does the DLC have the expansions and stuff in it?
It has one of the expansions.
It has the expansion factions available, obviously, since Pete played one of them. But I think if you want any of the Rise of Fenris stuff, you need to port in mods for the DLC, which are available.
So I'm just going to go ahead and briefly go over about 15 seconds each for the expansions, so you guys know they exist, what they do, and I'll tell you my thoughts real quick. So the first one I want to go over is the Scythe module board, actually make sure that's the right one. So the module board will allow you to randomize your board map in sections and stuff. This is the one that I don't have and I'm not going to get. The problem with it is the board itself is pretty well balanced per faction, and the only time I would add in a module board is if you're going to be using the Rise of Fenris expansion groups, but that's a separate thing. So that's one of the expansions, the module board. Another expansion is actually literally an expansion to the board. If you flip the side of the Scythe board, it's a larger map. And if you get a second map, which is the right side or left side, I can't remember, it makes a giant map. That is also one I'm not going to get, but it can get a little crowded with the Wind Gambit expansion. So I can see where people want that. The first
the double-sized board, is it the same number of hexes?
Yeah,
but
it doesn't change.
Printed larger? Okay.
Yeah, so it gives you more room for your stuff. I didn't really have much of a problem even with Wind Gambit, so I skipped it. The first expansion that I really recommend is the Scythe Encounter expansion, and that one is just a small box of a bunch of encounter cards, which encounter cards are fun. And it's not that expensive. It's good to get. It's nice. The next one is Invaders from Afar. That lets you play up to 6 players, but it also introduced 2 new factions that you can interplay with the other factions. I believe it states that you shouldn't play them with 2 or 3 players. It should be a higher player count than that because those guys don't have barriers to getting to the factory. The next one is Scythe Wind Gambit, which I think is the best one. Nathan will probably argue with me, but I'll let him do that in a second. Scythe Wind Gambit adds battleships to the game, but beyond that, it adds modular game ends to it, so you can change how the game ends with the different modules. It adds more encounter cards, and the use of the battleships is pretty cool. The game adds another thing to unlock and a new strategy you can deploy in the game. I think Scythe Wind Gambit is the one that I would say if you bought any expansion period, that would be the one to get because of how much it adds for how little it costs, with the extra modules that you get to play, the extra units you get to use. Nathan's probably going to disagree with me, but the next one up after Wind Gambit.
What, you're not going to give me a chance to disagree with you?
Oh, you will. You will. I have to talk about it first. So the next one up would be Scythe, the Rise of Fenris, which adds in a bunch of stuff that you unlock through the game. So I won't talk about what actually comes out in the game, but it adds ability to be a campaign and do things through a campaign. However, you don't need to do that. You can just open everything up and play with the different modules and the things that it adds. The Scythe Rise of Fenris, if you're going to get it, where it actually shines is the campaign, and it works with the Wind Gambit, which is another reason that I think that it's the first expansion you should get, beyond maybe Invaders of the Far. So now I'll go ahead and let Nathan argue about that.
Well, I can't argue a huge amount. I have yet to play Wind Gambit. I don't own it. It's one of the failings in my collection. Rise of Fenris, I would say the campaign's nice, but it does add, the big thing is for me is it adds lots of nice modules. There's a lot of things you can throw in. So, I would almost, Yeah, I would definitely say get Fenris. You can play the campaign or not, but just have those modules is nice.
Yeah, and that's the one thing. If you ever get the Wind Gambit, you'll see what I'm talking about. It actually has more modules, and it has those cool battleships. But I'm interested to see if you play that one. That's one thing I think we should do if we can as a group, play with the Wind Gambit and some of the modules. And I don't know if we're going to invest enough time to do the Rise of Fenris campaign. But definitely, I think we should play the Wind Gambit because flying battleships.
I'm sold.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be willing to give it a try. I would be willing to give just base game a try again because I feel like I could benefit from one more play to get the strategy down and to like put on my blinders and actually focus, which I've kind of failed to do. Pete probably feels the same way.
So these flying battleships, do they let you harvest clouds? Get the lightning out of the cloud?
So the cool thing about the battleships is they can add up to 1 to 2 different types of abilities that you get in the game, and some of them may not be warfare. Like you may not actually be able to fight with the battleships. So it's interesting in that fact, but I actually strongly suggest that we play Scythe, the base game, until you're comfortable with it before we add additional layers to the game. So once you mechanically be like, I got this, and Dan or Peter crushes us, then then we can jump into the Wind Gambit, which gives so much replayability to the game. It's insane just in that little box. And we already played with Invaders of Afar because Peter played the one faction.
Right.
The other faction I hate because it's so darn slow, I think it is. And that's the one where you play and you can drop bombs all over the place or traps.
That's the Japanese one.
Yeah.
Right?
I love the art and stuff, and I like the mechs and stuff. I love painting them and stuff, but I hate that faction. Like, it doesn't have anything for speed. It doesn't do anything crazy. It's just traps. I did like when I finally made it to the middle, dropping a trap in the middle in the factory, and I could tell, like the flags, you can teleport to the traps with a mech unlock or something. But yeah, that was my least favorite faction. The second one is the one Dan played.
I'm sorry, my Nordic folk were your second least favorite faction.
Second least favorite faction, yeah. I don't know what Nathan's played a bunch. Which is your least favorite faction?
I have not actually played as much as I'd like to, and I don't have many expansions. The only expansion I have is actually the Rise of Fenris, so I haven't played with the expansion factions. I mean, really, my favorite, of course, is the one that allows you to do extra combat that you had, but I don't really have a least favorite.
My favorite is not the one I played. My favorite is the Russian one, and I have to pry myself away from playing the Russian one.
Oh, is that the one that allows you to do this same action twice in a row?
Not twice in a row, infinite.
Yeah, infinite. That is actually the best one.
I can just do move the entire game.
So that's the one I wanted.
Yeah, you should try that one. I purposely didn't take it because I would have took it, but the angling of the board, I wanted my thing to show like the board head on for the filming. But I was so tempted. I was like, well, maybe I could just save a camera angle. But I was like, no. I should try something different. I love that faction. That is hands down my favorite. The worker swimmers, meh.
Yeah, I'd agree on that.
Worker swimmers actually turned out okay for me. I was able to swim across the river into a village and make more workers for a little while.
Yeah, I've had a lot of people like excel with that. It's just so against my like normal strategies. They just every time I played it, I just bomb because I'm really bad at it. So I think that some of the factions can make call to you a little bit more because that's how you want to play.
Yeah, I would agree with James on that. I mean, I like them and I can strategize with them. They just feel a little awkward to me because you can get across and you want, as you were saying, you want to get your mechs across too, but you can't. All that kind of stuff.
Well, you can get your mechs across. You just build them over there.
Yeah.
The problem is you're throwing your workers out. And I found with them, I got less encounters until I unlocked the mech stuff because I was spending more time moving the workers out. But I think Dan played them pretty well. So.
Well, I'll take that at least. I'll take that bone you tossed me.
Yeah, well, you definitely played them better than I do. How about that? If people watching the video be like, I don't know, these guys don't know what they're doing. That's fine.
Most likely, yes.
Well, if they say it about me,
don't watch the video and critique our strategy, people. Don't do that.
And then really what it comes down to, I think for any game, is regardless of how you played, is if you had fun. And if you don't have fun playing a game, no matter how good it is, it doesn't really matter. And I've always had fun even losing in Scythe.
Yeah, I didn't win, and I felt pleased enough with the little engine that I built that didn't quite make it. Didn't quite could.
I mean, if it was in real life, I'd be like punching Nathan until he would stop moving pieces. But it wasn't, so I couldn't do that.
I want to play at that game.
Hey.
Well, one thing I'm looking forward to, which is really sad, like Twilight Imperium 4th Edition, the expansion, isn't going to be in stock until June.
That sounds about right to me, actually.
It's sold out in like 1 week.
I can tell you from my experience as a retailer, towards the end of the year, warehouses empty out, and they do not want to refill those warehouses until spring-ish. So yeah, we're in a dearth of availability right now. So don't panic. The games will become available eventually again, unless of course they're exclusive Kickstarter whatevers.
Well, that means that if I can get it in June, that means Nathan will have to come over sometime after June, and then we're gonna have to play Twilight Imperium 4th Edition with everything.
You realize you could just place your pre-order right now.
I can. I hate doing that though. I think we'd wrap it up. I love Scythe. I want to play it more with you guys. It's a great mechanical game. I think Scythe is probably, if not the best, one of the best games that Stonemaier Games has put out. They have a lot of great games. I just seem to like that one over playing it. Once you play it more and more, it just sort of grows on you every time.
Yeah,
I think the next up would probably be Wingspan. But go ahead. What was that?
I was just gonna say there seems to be so much going on with it mechanically that after one playthrough, I think most people, if you enjoy it, if you enjoy the theme, if you enjoy the game, I think you're gonna want to play it again and again and again, just so that you can really start to hone your understanding of the mechanics and the play, which is where I'm at right now. Like I'm ready to play it again, so that I don't want to put long periods of time in between play so I forget the game. I want to be able to build my knowledge of it because it's fun.
One final bit of business to attend to. During our top 10 episode, I issued a challenge to the gentleman to tell me about a game that could be acquired from Miniature Market, and I would select a game and send it to the winner in the mail. I will now reveal the fact that these gentlemen were not ever playing a competitive game. They were actually playing a cooperative game, and everybody won that cooperative game. So, evil GM laugh, insert here.
I saw it coming.
I didn't see it coming. Seriously?
I just always said Twilight Imperium 4th Edition expansion.
Yep, no, that was a thing. Yeah, you guys, yeah.
So we all got our games?
Yeah, you all got your games.
I did not see that coming. I was sitting here thinking like I got the game and nobody else did, and you guys got your games too. That's super exciting.
Hence my secret unboxing I mentioned.
So my game was Gone Clever, That's So Clever, or something like that. And we've played like 10 games of that so far. It is amazing.
Awesome.
Thank you very much. It's definitely my favorite roll and write. The problem with a lot of roll and writes is you sort of figure them out, and then it just gets boring because you either roll well or you don't. But I haven't been able to do that yet with Gone Clever, at least. There's just so much to it. In fact, I think I have scored remedially. Yeah, I definitely have. I have. There's 5 stars. I get half a star. So. I don't know how you get 5 stars in that. I don't know. I mean, I haven't figured it out. Most of these I max out all the scoring. This I'm really bad at it, but I love it.
Yeah, and I got Mariposa, Hargrave's new game. So, and I sadly have not got to play it yet, but it is going to hit the table soon, and it's going to be a blast. I can't wait to play it.
And then what did Nathan get?
I got Pandemic Legacy Season 0.
Nice.
I don't even know how you can do an unboxing. You'll be like, here's the box you can't open.
I got to censor my unboxing.
Here's stuff you can't see.
God, do that. Actually unbox
the whole unboxing
legacy.
is blurred.
Actually unbox some of the legacy components. Just blur the video. Do it.
Oh no, this is giving me horrible flashbacks of the 2 months I spent doing censorship for old Chinese movies, and I had to just watch the most horrifying, obscene scenes over and over again.
Oh no.
14 hours a day for 6 days a week.
That sounds awesome.
Well, Dan, thank you very much. That's a really cool. It's a really cool surprise. I had no idea that we all 3 got our games. So fun.
Yeah, like I said, evil mastermind laugh. Insert here. You guys were never playing a competitive game. You guys were playing a co-op game.
Love it.
Yeah, that's fun.
Thank you for listening. If you have any feedback for us, feel free to visit us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or Board Game Geek Guild 2989, or our website at tabletopgamingguild.com. And don't forget to like, follow, and or subscribe. Tabletop Gaming Guild is a product of Tabletop Gaming Guild, LLC. All rights reserved.